So hello guys, welcome back. This is Viren Kumar. So today in this video session, I'm going to discuss about the deployment process of a project through the CI/CD pipeline in the Azure DevOps. If you are going to prepare for the DevOps engineer with the Azure DevOps, then this is the second process you have to do in as part of the project. The deployment is the second part for a DevOps engineer. The first part is the building the project, and the building the project done through the continuous integration pipeline that we have seen in our last videos. And the second pipeline is the deployment. Means whatever build is generated through the CI pipeline we want to deploy on the particular web environment. Okay, so on my screen you can see that the build, artifacts and the deployment, there are the three terms we should know before going with the CI/CD pipeline. Now here is the agenda for this video. So the first we will discuss about what is the Azure pipelines. We will talk in the different way to understand the deployment process in a very easy manner. Then what is the build automation? We will understand the build automation process as part of the Azure pipelines. The build automation, also called the continuous integration pipeline. Then we will discuss about what is the release automation. The release automation called the continuous delivery of the project. So we can understand the release automation through the release pipelines. Then what is the build in the software development lifecycle? You should aware the build in the software development lifecycle, because if you are going for an interview, then definitely the question will arise, what is the build? Okay, so we will understand the build and you will come to know what is the build. The testing build, the software product build, what is the build in the development lifecycle. Then what is the artifact in the software development lifecycle? The artifact means what you can understand. What are the artifacts that we will understand in this video? Then the sixth point is what is the build artifact. If you know the artifact, then we will understand what is the build artifact. After that, we will understand the deployment artifact and Azure artifacts that we call the artifacts in the Azure pipelines. Then we understand the publish artifacts and the download artifacts. Okay, these 10 points are very important to understand as part of the interview also. And if you understand these 10 points in this video, then you can easily become the DevOps engineer, because the deployment part is a very tricky part, because you need to deploy your software into the production or on the testing environment very carefully. Okay, so we will discuss these points one by one in very easy manner, so you can continue with this video. Now, before going to start, you should have the one questions where to start. Means what is the build, what is the artifact? You are the confused, like how to start with this build and the artifacts of the pipelines. So you can start with Azure CI/CD pipelines. So first you understand the CI pipelines. Okay, what is the continuous integration pipeline and what is the continuous delivery pipeline? Once you come to know about the pipeline, and you have the basic idea about the Azure DevOps CI/CD pipelines, then you can start understanding the build artifacts. What is the build and what is the artifact and what is the build artifact? Then you can understand the pipeline artifacts. What is the Azure pipeline? So we can understand the Azure pipeline as an integrated set of the features which can support the building and the deploying your applications. You have a software applications and that you want to build and deploy into a particular environment. So for that, the Azure pipelines will help you to perform this integrated way. And this will be the automated way. Through that, the software will automatically build and deploy into the particular environment. But as a DevOps engineer, you need to set up this automation process for the CI/CD pipelines. Okay, and that you can understand through the Azure pipelines. You can start with the Azure pipelines. Okay, now we will understand what is the build automation. The build automation, the terms called that building the automation. The build automation terms come from the continuous integration pipeline. So we have the continuous integration pipeline, and through that we will build our software project, and that is called the build automation. I want to publish the artifact. Create a one task that the publish pipeline artifact. Okay, so now I'm going to add this one, and the publish pipeline artifact, going to click on it, the task version, display name, publish pipeline artifact, file and directory path. The pipeline artifact will store at the pipeline workspace. So this is the pipeline workspace by default location and directory path. When you click, it will say the path of the file directly to publish. Now I'm going to publish, add this directory, and what is the artifact name? So let's say demo artifact. Okay, and Azure pipeline, this one, custom properties, you can leave blank, control options, leave as it is blank, variables you can leave as it is blank. Okay, so one job I have added, this is the one task. Okay, now I'm going to save and queue. So you just save, so you can say demo artifact. Okay, and now this pool name is there, Windows machine agent master branch, then save and run. Agent job for build. So now I'm going to click on it, then it will publish the artifact. So the artifact is published, the artifact name is demo artifact. Okay, so you can copy this one. Okay, demo artifact, this is the part of the build automation upload. Now you can go back. Now here you can see the one artifact is published, so you will get the link of the artifact under the related. So you click on that one, and then you can see the demo artifact, first the artifact name, then the test results, and you can see all these files available for this Git repository. Okay, so these files are published as an artifact, so these called the artifacts. Now this is part of the build automation. Now the same I'm going to use for the CD deployment pipeline. So this build I want to deploy in the particular environment. So this is the build number. The hash 691 is the build number. So you can make a note for the build. Build number is the 695. This is the build number. So let's see the definition. A build automation is the build plus test. So in software we have the three stages, basically the building the software, testing the software, and deploying the software. The build automation performs the two steps, the building the software plus testing. Okay, in the build automation continuous integrations, basically we define the steps through the YAML pipelines or through the classic editor. We define the steps so that it can take the build and it can trigger the build automatically. The build automation process basically have the build pipelines, and these build pipelines include the instructions to run the test after the build runs. Okay, once the build is available, it will be automatically deploying to the particular environment, and the testing will start on the build. Okay, so it will run the Selenium test cases, BDD Cucumber test cases to check the quality of that build. After that we have the release automation. So release automation have the release pipelines. So the release pipelines have the deployment. So we will deploy the software into the production or in the staging environments for the testing purpose, also UAT testing. Okay, so The release automation basically manages their simultaneous releases. You can see there are the release all every 3 months, 4 months of the software. We run the automation to deploy the software to each environment from development to the production. Okay. In the development environment, we run the automation script to deploy the software into the development environment and the production environment. Now let's understand the terms called what is a build. Okay. So a build is a set of executable code that is ready for use by the customer. The build, you can say set of executable code. Executable code is the binary code. So developer writes the software in the particular programming language, suppose the Java programming language, we have the 5 source code files. Okay. And once it's compiled, it converted into the executable code, and that is available as a build. And that build is ready for the use. Okay. But before that, we perform some testing on the build to check the product and the software quality. And the build may include the compiling the source files. Okay, we compile the source files. Now a build is a pre-release version. It's not the after release version. It's the pre-release version. Pre-release means its build is not in the production environment. It's still in the staging or in the testing environment. Okay, and a build always identified by a build number. A build always have the build number rather than it's by a release number. So release will be the different number and the build will be the different number. So both are the different things. Okay, the DevOps team will compile the source code such as a code in the Java into the binaries to make sure it's a functional and the test code quality before committing it. It means the source code the DevOps team will compile. Okay, then it will convert into the binary file, then it will perform the functional testing or the regression testing, and then after that they commit the code into the repository. Now let's understand what is the artifact. Artifacts are the files that are produced by a step in the YAML pipelines or in the classic U pipelines. For example, we can want to use the jar files generated by a build step in the later development step. So we have the jar files that is generated by a build in a particular step and that we can use in the deployment step. Artifacts can either be stored in the repository in our CI server, continuous integration server, or in an external location available in the CI server. So we have the two options where we can store the artifact. At the first we can store at the CI server itself, and second is the external location, like on the GitHub you want to store the artifact, you can store over there, or you want to store at the Azure DevOps repos, then you can store the artifact over there. What are the types of the artifacts? Basically in the Azure DevOps we consider the three types of the artifacts: build artifacts, Azure artifacts, and the pipeline artifacts. The build artifacts related to the build, the pipeline artifacts related to the pipeline, and Azure artifacts related to the Azure services. There are three different type of the artifacts and all have the different type of the limitations and the advantage, so that we will see in this video. Now what is the build artifact? The build artifacts are the files those are created by the build process, such as the distribution package, war files, okay, logs and the reports. So when anyone asks what is the build artifacts, the build artifacts are simply the files those are created by the build process. What is the build process? It's a continuous integration process. When the continuous integration process happens, build artifacts are generated. Okay, and they perform the packaging of the software, and packaging of the war files. Okay. Now what is the deployment artifacts? So deployment artifacts is also called the build. There is the application code as it's run on the production. It's a single binary file or it's a bunch of the files compressed in a archive folders. So it can be in the war files or it can be your one package or it can be a single binary file that run into the production environment. Okay, there the end user can access the applications like we perform www.google.com. So this is the one applications we accessing the google.com. So that is in the production and that behind the one build is of this application code is running. Okay, that we handle through the deployment artifacts. Now Azure artifacts. This is the third type of the artifacts. We can use the Azure pipelines to publish and to download different type of the artifacts as part of the CI/CD workflow. Now the CI/CD workflow means continuous integration and continuous deployment workflow with design, and during this design we need to publish the artifacts, we need to download the artifacts, and these are available by the Azure artifacts. So Azure provides the internal artifacts tasks, and by using these tasks we can publish and download the artifacts for our CI/CD workflow. The first artifact divided into the publish artifacts. Okay. Then we have the download the artifacts. So artifacts can be published at any stage of our pipeline. So first we need to publish the artifact, and artifacts are the files. Okay. When we have the pipelines, in the pipelines we need to first publish the artifacts. We can use the YAML pipelines or the classic Azure DevOps editor to publish the packages. So we have the packages, we have the war files, or we can have the jar files that first we want to publish. Once it published, then we can download these artifacts. So we can download the artifact from the earlier stages in the pipeline or from another pipeline. Okay. So the publish artifact output will be the input for the download artifacts. Okay. A pipeline have the multiple stages, so consider this is one stage and this stage is called the publish artifact. So publish artifact stage output will be the input for the download stage. Okay. These things we can understand thoroughly through the demo on the UI. Now publishing the artifacts depends for the two types, the build artifacts and the pipeline artifacts. When we are talking about the build publish artifact, we have the one task publish build artifact, and these tasks are the predefined tasks in the Azure DevOps directory. Okay, and for the pipeline we have the publish pipeline artifact, and what is the difference between them we will see in the next video. Same we have the download artifacts. So download artifact are the build artifact. So download the build artifact is the one task for downloading the artifacts, and download the pipeline artifact we have the pipeline artifact, and this is the one task download pipeline artifact. So these are about the artifact. Now let's move to the demo process. I'm going to create a one CI/CD pipeline from end to end, and then you can understand the build artifact, how to publish the artifact, how to download the artifact, everything through the demo. This is the theory part is very important to understand while you're giving the answer during the interview process. You should aware about the definition of about all these things. Let's go to the release pipeline, and there I am going to create a one release pipeline. So this is a new release pipeline, and for this one I'm going to select the empty job, and here I am going to add one artifact. So the artifact which comes from the build. So just now we have the build pipeline, and what was the pipeline name? Test Azure build. So this was the build pipeline name, and we have the default version is the latest source file, and I'm going to add it. So this is the artifact. Okay, now the stage one, and under that I'm going to add one job. So in the deployment I want to download the build, so you can see download the artifacts. So I am going to download the pipeline artifact. So it is saying download the build and pipeline artifact. So it will work for the build artifact also, and it will work for the pipeline artifact also. I'm going to click. Now change the settings. Download the pipeline artifact from the current run, and this time I'm going to provide the artifact name. So this was our artifact name. Okay, and you can keep all the settings as it is. The destination directory is the pipeline.workspace always. So we will download, because we push this artifact at this directory during the build automation. Now in the deployment automations we have the same workspace, from that we want to download this artifact. Let's save this pipeline. For once the pipeline is saved, okay, now how to run this pipeline? To run this pipeline I'm going to create a release pipeline. For the staging environment, this is my pipeline, and this is the build number automatically 696. So we have the build number 696, latest one, and let's create. Now the release one is created. I'm going to click on that, and let's see the deployment will happen or not. So it's going to download the artifact, and after that it will perform the deployment. So the deployment is happened successfully in the stage 1 environment. Okay, through the release 1 with all the deployment. So the summary sections, you can see this stage 1 is the environment name, deployment is succeed, agent job is succeed, automatic trigger. Now the release 1 is there, and if you want to download this artifact you can download from this build. So it will navigate to your this build. So this build is there. So build summary is there.